friend.
to do
My my son
to
wheeled.
watch
My best friend Anna hosted a party at her house when she suddenly turned off the music, opened the door, and cops flooded in, circling everyone like we were criminals. "Everyone stay where you are," she said calmly. "We're going to play a little game." Everyone was confused, wondering why the cops were here for a party game, and I found my little brother in the crowd, tugging his fresh bandage in fear. Anna stood in the center of the room. "Now, everyone stand up." Everyone stood up, looking around nervously. "Step forward if you ever had a crush on me in high school," Anna said. 7 people laughed and stepped up, including my brother, and I smiled because he'd had a thing for her since the 9th grade. "Now, step forward if you were upset when I got married." The laughter died, people whispering about what kind of sick game this was. Only 4 stepped up this time, and my brother was still one of them. He'd barely said a word at her wedding 2 years ago, but I figured he was just happy for her. Anna's eyes watered. "Step forward if you were at my house the night my husband disappeared 6 months ago." My stomach twisted as my brother stepped forward again, because he'd told me he was home with me that night. Just 3 people were left standing, and all 6 cops closed in around them. "Last one," Anna said, her voice shaking. "Step forward if you have a scar on your forearm, and if you do, show everyone." The other 2 looked around, confused, but my brother slowly reached down and ripped the bandage off his arm, revealing a long, deep scar. Everyone gasped. Anna whispered, "That's him! Get him!" The cops grabbed him instantly, and I lunged forward. "What are you doing? What did my brother do?" Anna finally let the tears fall. "My husband didn't disappear. He was murdered in our kitchen, and he cut his attacker's arm before he died." She stared at my brother. "I hosted this party to find out who killed him, and it was your brother." My whole world stopped. My brother smiled. They dragged him out as he screamed, "I should have married you! It should have been me!" I stayed and held Anna as she grieved. My best friend Anna hosted a party at her house when she suddenly turned off. A masked robber pointed a gun at my depression support group, and it was the first time I smiled in years. He screamed, "Get down on the ground now!" But nobody flinched, and when I burst out laughing, he looked even angrier. He swung the gun at me, so I took his free hand and led him into the booth like a lost kid. "You picked the wrong people to try and scare Buddy. Take a seat." None of us were the scared victims he'd hoped for, and I knew I had to take the gun from him before he did something he'd regret. He tore his hand free and slammed the table. "You think this is funny? Everyone hand over your wallets. Now." Gary, the oldest of us, slid his coat across. "There's $5 in it. I lost my job in March. That's everything I have." Marge, a 50-year-old widow struggling with postpartum depression, shoved her purse at him. "Take it, sweetheart. There's a coupon book and a picture of my dead husband in there." The gun jumped with every laugh, and I couldn't tell if we were settling him down or lighting the fuse. But we couldn't stop. For years, we'd all felt numb on the inside. But a robber being supported by a group he'd threatened to kill was hilarious, even for us. But his face went red. He spun and pressed the barrel to my forehead. You laughed first." The booth went dead silent, and I was finally afraid, and part of me was grateful to feel something that wasn't depression. I gently shook my head. "You're not going to shoot me. I know suffering when I see it. We all do. You're drowning in your own mental pain. If you're struggling, you can just ask. That's what we're here for." He froze, and for a second, all of us leaned in, not knowing what he was going to do next. His arms sagged, and he ripped the mask off because he was crying into it. I got evicted Tuesday. He fell into the booth and pushed the gun across the table, so I carried it behind the bar. I didn't know what to do. My friends told me this was the easiest way to get a down payment for another place. I just didn't want to be homeless. My heart broke, and wallets were already sliding at him. He hadn't picked the wrong people to rob. He'd picked the only people who understood him perfectly. Marge stuck a name tag on his chest. "What's your name?" He whispered, "Doug." She wrote Doug, and when he laughed, the whole booth went with him. It took me years to find my laugh. It took Doug 20 minutes. "I have a spare room for you, Doug. Stay as long as you like." He's there every Thursday now. Worst robber we ever had. A masked robber pointed a gun at my
No.
I opened my laptop to play Stardew Valley the way I did every single night since my chemo started 18 months ago, and the save file I'd put over 2,000 hours into was gone. My hands went cold on the keyboard because I'd built every fence post and planted every crop on nights I couldn't sleep from the treatments. And that farm was the one thing that still felt like mine when even my own body didn't. My little brother Max knocked on my doorframe. "Hey, did you move your files to the new backup drive? I was helping Mom back up her photos, and I think I might have..." He saw my face and stopped talking mid-sentence. Oops, I already knew there was no getting any of it back, but some part of me still needed to try. I couldn't say anything for a long moment, just staring at the space where my farm used to be. Max sat down on the edge of my bed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was that big a deal." I started to cry. "It's not just a game, Max. I built that during the worst year of my life. It's the only thing I made when I couldn't make anything else." I spent the next 2 nights Googling recovery software myself between treatments, staying up later than my body could handle, but every program came back with the same result: nothing. By the 3rd morning, I'd stopped opening the laptop at all, but Max was still at his desk, recovery programs open on his own screen, empty energy drink cans stacked by his elbow. That night, he knocked on my door again, laptop held out in both hands. I found an old backup buried in a hidden folder. It's from 2 weeks before the crash, so you'd lose a little, but he turned the screen toward me, and there it was. My little farmhouse, my crops, my 2,000 hours minus 14 days. I grabbed him into a hug so hard he laughed. "Thank you, Max," he shrugged, still holding the laptop steady between us. "You made something out of the worst year of your life. Somebody had to help you keep it." I opened my laptop. I was at the front of the giant dragon costume during the Chinese New Year parade, weaving down the street. But through the dragon's mouth, I saw a group of older kids in the crowd shoving my best friend's little brother and pulling their eyes at him, saying Ching Chong. He'd been adopted from China just 7 months ago and barely even spoke English. He just wanted to see the parade. I watched one of them slap his bao bun from his hands, and the chicken his mom made for him splattered all over the concrete. He began tearing up, but every adult in the crowd was too focused on celebrating Chinese New Year to actually help a Chinese kid getting bullied. I immediately balled my fist and shouted to the dancers in the dragon with me. In sync, we turned slightly off course, straight towards the kids who were now poking him with bamboo sticks. The crowd gasped and the parade stopped, and at once our whole dragon charged at the bullies. Everyone watched as I slammed into them with the dragon's head first. They stumbled back. What the hell? But the dragon's body whipped sideways and swept every one of them off their feet. The lead bully's face went straight into the bao bun on the concrete, covering his chin and nose in pickled onions and cucumber. Teriyaki sauce got in his eyes and hair, and they groaned in pain while the crowd just stood shocked. But I didn't care. I pulled my friend's brother under the costume and wiped his tears. He was part of the dragon now. I was at the front of the giant dragon costume during the Chinese New Year parade, weaving down the street. But through the dragon's mouth, I used a sloth hand puppet to take down my stalker. I was grabbing boxes from my car and saw my building manager, Arthur, breathing heavily and fogging up my window. Hey, beautiful, can I take you out to a romantic dinner? I got uncomfortable. I have a boyfriend. 2 nights later, I stepped out of the shower, put a towel on, and noticed a small hole in the wall of the bathroom. I looked closer, and my stomach churned when I saw Arthur's beady eyeball staring back at me through the wall. I called the police, and they said if I didn't have any evidence, there was nothing they could do. I covered up any holes in my place and lived in constant fear. The only way I was able to forget about Arthur was to watch my favorite movie, The Clutterbucks, at full volume so he couldn't hear me. As I was watching, I got an idea. The youngest daughter in the film speaks through a sloth hand puppet. So the next night, I opened my door and saw Arthur standing there, facing me with his rank breath. I quickly pulled out my own sloth puppet. Thank God I had placed a camera inside his cute little face to capture everything. Faced it towards him and spoke through it. Why are you in my place? He started circling me. I was waiting for you because I know how chicks love to play hard to get, so don't worry. I'm man enough to just take you. He grabbed my wrist and grinned like a maniac. I was horrified. Get your hands off of me! It's destiny that we be together. Can't you see it? His eyes narrowed and he grabbed the back of my neck. I was terrified, but held strong, speaking through my puppet. You're delusional. Let go of my wrist, he smiled. All of you bitches are insane. I mean, you're talking through a puppet for crying out loud. I was trembling, in fear for my life. I tried to leave, but he shoved me against the wall. If you try it, I'll bite it off. That distracted him enough to give me time to knee him in the berries and rush out. I went straight to the police, took out the small surveillance camera from inside my puppet, and showed the cops. They immediately arrested Arthur. A few months later, I heard that he got jail time for beating up on a girl. All I could think about was how if I hadn't gotten that idea from the Clutterbucks, I would have been next. When my friends ask me how I got rid of Arthur, I just tell them to go and watch the movie. My mom shakes me awake at 3 a.m. and presses a small vial of clear liquid into my hands. It's finally here, sweetheart. She pulls up the calendar and points at today's date, circled in red, the day we drink this. I sit up and rub my eyes. Mom, do we have to? But she's already putting my white robe on me and plaiting my hair. Everyone's drinking theirs tonight. I look down at the vial and the way it's bubbling feels wrong. But Stacy's parents made her drink this too, and I haven't seen Stacy since. My mom smiles wider. That's why you have to drink it, so you can be with Stacy. She tips it to my lips before I can react, and I feel the liquid slide onto my tongue. It instantly burns the inside of my mouth, but she just smiles. Good girl. I watch her swallow hers in one gulp, and she sighs in relief. But then her smile freezes, and her eyes roll back. She falls to the floor, and I watch my mother's skin go pale as her veins pop. But the liquid is still in my mouth. I never swallowed. I run to the sink and spit it out, then shove my mouth under the tap and rinse until my throat burns. I call the police and sob, because even if she's crazy, I'm still 8 years old, having just watched my mom die. 20 minutes later, I'm standing on our lawn as parents around the neighborhood are being walked out in handcuffs. A few kids stumble out crying behind them, but some houses carry out stretchers. I look at the white sheets pulled over and cry thinking about my helpless friends who died without a choice. They were my age. My mom shakes me awake at 3 a.m. and presses a small vial. My son kicked a puppy at the park and immediately grinned at me. Mom, I want a dog. I need something to take my anger out on. I sighed and told him absolutely not, but he instantly lost it, grabbing my shirt and screaming he wants a dog so loud people stared. He ripped my shirt and kicked my legs, but I simply dragged him to the car. He screamed that he hates me the entire way, but I ignored him and pulled into his anger management class building. I watched him storm inside with his fists clenched, then simply broke down at the wheel, crying because I felt like I'd failed as a mother. I started driving home, wondering what to do, when suddenly police cars flooded behind me. 8 patrol vehicles surrounded me, and I didn't even have time to think before they yanked my door open and tackled me to the ground with their weapons drawn. My face hit the ground and bruised, and I heard one of the cops yell, "Did you kidnap someone?" I was confused and frantically shook my head, but then my blood ran cold. A hand was sticking out through a broken taillight in my trunk. A cop popped the trunk, and that's when my son climbed out, crying, "She kidnapped me." He was shaking, and my whole body froze, realizing my own son climbed back into my trunk and faked being kidnapped. Why would he do this? The cops dragged me up and started shoving me towards the cruiser, while he smirked right at me. I screamed, "That's my son. I didn't kidnap him. I didn't even know he was in my car." But when a cop asked him if I was his mother, he shook his head. I've never seen her in my life. I started crying and yelled at them to check my wallet. They pulled it out, and the cop's face dropped seeing the photos of us together. "Is this your mom?" they asked my son again. He went quiet, but a cop was already pulling the dash cam footage from my car. I was still shaking from the cruiser when the cop with the dash cam walked to my son. "We know you faked being kidnapped. We have the proof right here. Why did you do this?" My son's mask dropped. The tears disappeared, and he clenched his jaw. He pointed at me. "She deserved to go to jail for not getting me a dog." Even the cops' faces dropped. They uncuffed me, and I immediately rubbed my wrists. "You know what, officer? Do what you want with him. He's no longer my son." I got in my car and drove off, watching him get cuffed in the rear view. I testified at his juvie hearing 4 weeks later. My son kicked a puppy at the park, and immediately
Kitana wins.
my son kicked my mom. My son kicked a puppy. Our new dog sprinting down the stairs at 2 a.m. with my daughter's blanket in his mouth. I immediately grabbed it to put it back, but he followed me and shoved himself between the crib and the wall, and there was foam coming out of his mouth. There were scratch and bite marks everywhere, so I gripped his collar and carried him to my husband's room. "We need to get rid of this dog tomorrow. He's a danger to our daughter." My husband immediately sat up to defend him, until he saw the dog nibble my arm and slap his tail against my leg. He nodded. "Okay, let's do it." I put him on the floor and locked the door so he could sleep with us till morning, but 20 minutes later, he was body slamming into the door. The frame split before I could reach him, and he sprinted back behind the crib to the wall under the heater, tearing off paint with his teeth. My face was drained of color because I thought he was attacking her. Without thinking, I ripped Layla out of the crib with her blanket, screamed for my husband, and we ran barefoot into the yard while Bear ran after us. I turned to my husband. "How could you have let us get this stupid dog? It almost killed our daughter." I was still screaming when my husband looked at something behind me and pointed with tears streaming down his face. I turned around and saw smoke pouring out of the nursery window, and the alarm finally started screaming inside. Minutes later, the fire crew arrived, and one of them came out to talk to us. "The heater beside your daughter's crib has been burning up all night. If you stayed home for 20 more minutes, you would all be as good as dead." I turned to look at the dog. Everything he did that I thought was disobedience was him trying to pull away Layla from the wall and save her life. He sleeps in the nursery now, and when he drags Layla's blanket somewhere new, we move her nap to wherever he put it. I caught our new dog sprinting down. My daughter Jasmine came home with a note stapled to her shirt. I instantly pulled it and read, "Your daughter has been cursing at every teacher in the building. She's suspended for the week." I crouched down in confusion because I didn't even think my daughter knew what a curse word was. Jasmine grabbed my wrist. "I didn't do it, Mommy." None of them believed me. I crumpled the note in my fist and told her I believed her. The next morning, I marched her into the principal's office, and he slid a stack of write-ups across the desk. 4 teachers heard her using foul language all day long, and other students started copying her. And right as I went to defend her, she shouted at the top of her lungs. The color drained from my face, and she pointed at his desk. The principal stood and pointed us out the door. I pulled her into the hallway. "Jasmine Vivian Dolores, what on earth has gotten into you?" She grabbed my hand without saying anything and led me towards the cafeteria. She pointed at a boy twirling noodles with cutlery. "I just wanted a mommy," I gasped. She was saying fork. She just had a lisp so strong that it came out as a curse word. Her eyes filled up with tears. I asked at snack time and they moved me. I asked at lunch and they put me in the corner, and I never got to eat all day. She held her empty hands back up to me and asked one more time for a fork. My daughter Jasmine came home with a note. My mother-in-law said, "Choose which twin gets the liver transplant. I'm only paying for one." Agatha hated me ever since her son married me instead of the rich heiress she'd wanted. Her hatred got worse when my husband and I got into a car accident, and I walked out of the hospital while she buried her son. She had been waiting for the perfect moment to make me pay, and it came when both my twins needed liver transplants within 24 hours before they would die. Agatha controlled the only money that could pay for it, so she walked straight to where I sat and said, "You took my son. Now choose which kid I take from you." For the next couple hours, I moved between my son and daughter's bed, holding their hands, while while Agatha stared at me from outside the door. Every hour, she sent a text asking if I'd made my choice yet. I just spent those hours looking at their faces, trying to find some answer that would never come. By the 12th hour, I was vomiting in the bathroom. After 15 hours, the twins suddenly woke up and held hands. My daughter looked at me and whispered, "Mommy, is Grandma making you cry?" That's when Agatha stormed into the room and delivered her final threat. 9 hours left or you lose them both. I looked at my twins holding hands and knew I couldn't comply anymore. I called my lawyer, who found a clause in my husband's trust that said the money must be used for the welfare of all beneficiaries, not just one. My lawyer took it to a judge who instantly ordered Agatha to pay for both transplants. Agatha grabbed me and said, "You think you've won? I'll make sure you never see a penny from this family again." I stared her down. Your son knew what kind of mother you really were. That's why he included that clause. Both twins were wheeled into surgery together, and 12 hours later came out safe and sound. My mother-in-law said, "Choose which twin gets the liver transplant. I'm only paying for one." Agatha hated me ever since her son married me. I caught the three kids who'd been terrorizing my street, spraying graffiti across my front wall, so I grabbed my cane and marched out. But when I looked up, my whole body went cold. They'd sprayed all over the plaque of my best friend who died serving with me. I turned and jabbed my cane at them, telling them to stop spraying. But the biggest one sneered, "What does that stupid plaque even mean? And what are you going to do about it, Granny?" He snatched my cane from me while the other two kept spraying. Wait, I think this plaque is a memorial for her friend or something. One of them squinted at the plaque, now barely visible through the paint. "Let's spray a skull emoji wall." I was almost crying and tried to stop them, but I couldn't move well without my cane. But when I reached for it, the biggest one held it above my head. "Go on, talk to me about that respect your elders bullcrap. That's the card you geriatrics love to pull." He snickered, so I bent down as far as I could and grabbed a rock, my hand shaking. I hurled it straight into his shin, and his laughing turned to a scream of pain. He dropped my cane to grab his leg, and I snatched it off the ground and started jabbing his buffoon friends who were still spray painting. The biggest screamed, "You're gonna pay for that. We'll be back tonight, and you'll regret touching me." I replied, "Probably the first time a woman's ever touched you anyway." The three of them ran off down the street. I looked at the destroyed plaque, then went inside and made one phone call. That evening, the three brats came back like they promised, strutting up my path like they owned it, and shaking their cans of spray paint. But this time, I was already outside, leaning on my cane and calm as anything. They got halfway up the path, grinned and raised their cans, ready to spray me this time. But then 8 soldiers stepped out from the bushes and surrounded them, their firearms cocked. My second-in-command cocked his shotgun. Every grin dropped, and the biggest one went so pale, a wet patch spread down his jeans. The men who served under me looked at my best friend's name buried under the spray paint, then stepped forward, closing the circle on the punks who were now crying from fear. I reached out and pressed the tip of my cane into the biggest one's shivering temple. "Now you're gonna clean all the spray paint off, or my squad here will make sure you never spray paint again. Got it?" He started nodding like he'd been put on loop. 5 minutes later, I was watching them crying as they scrubbed the wall on their knees. My best friend's name was Clean, but I wasn't stopping until they'd scrubbed every house they'd sprayed. I caught the birthday girl sat down at my hibachi table, but then her eyes instantly went wide. "Oh my god, it's the whale! You actually work here?" My face turned red because I recognized them immediately. The 3 girls who bullied me in high school for being fat and saying I wanted to be a chef. But now I was a professional, so I just lit the grill and told myself they'd matured and everything would be fine. Until the birthday girl leaned over, "I bet you dropped all that weight using Ozempic. There's no way you did it for real." My fists curled around the spatula because I worked so hard to lose that weight and pass out in training. But I just flipped their shrimp and started dicing their potatoes for their noodle bowl. But suddenly, I caught a bright flash in my eye. Hot grease splashed on my hand because I couldn't see, and when I looked up, the birthday girl was filming. I can't believe it. It's the whale. This is so going on my story. My legs shook from embarrassment under the table, and I swallowed dryly as I placed their noodle bowl in front of them. I did the onion volcano next that every customer loved, but all 3 of them started booing so loud the other tables turned. "We're paying for this. That was pathetic. Do it again." They started snapping their fingers. I wanted to cry, and that's when I felt something on my uniform. I looked up and saw one of the friends had picked shrimp off the grill and thrown it at my chest. My eyes went wide, and that's when the birthday girl giggled, "Let me join in." She hurled a handful of rice at my face. I managed to dodge most of it, but some landed down my uniform, and as the 3 of them howled, I couldn't take it. I gripped my spatula so hard my knuckles went red, then placed it on the grill, and accidentally flipped a drop of hot grease onto the birthday girl's cheek. She instantly shrieked, "It hurts!" and threw her arms in the air. Her elbows caught a giant bowl of noodles, which tipped all over her birthday outfit. Broth ran down her dress as she stood up screaming, and I tried not to laugh. Her friends were also screaming because the noodles had tipped onto their dresses, and now boiling hot broth was running down their legs. They ran out screaming, and I just laughed and started eating some of their shrimp. I wasn't letting it go to waste. The birthday girl sat. I'd just gotten home from my 6th 12-hour shift in a row when I saw my 5-year-old son standing on a chair pulling something out of the oven. "Baby, no, you're going to burn yourself." I dropped my bags and ran over, but he shoved his little body in front of the oven, blocking me. "No, Mommy." I tried to pull him back, but he gripped the oven door and kicked me with his legs. My son has never given me trouble, so I couldn't understand why he was acting like this. I reached for him with shaking arms, tired from my shift, but he spun around startled and knocked the stove knob, lighting the burner beneath the dish towel. It caught instantly, flames crawling toward the cabinet. Move! I shoved him back and turned off the burner. But as I reached for a towel to smother the flames, he screamed, "I want to help Mommy! Let me help!" and threw a bag of flour over it before I could. The whole thing erupted into a fireball, the flour feeding the flames as they roared across the ceiling faster than I could breathe. "Oh my God! We have to go! Now!" But he lunged back toward the oven, the heat scorching his little body. "No! My cake! I need my cake!" I couldn't understand why he cared about a stupid cake, but if we didn't leave, we'd die. So I threw him over my shoulder and ran, stumbling onto the lawn as our house went up in flames, with no clue why my son did this. Firefighters swarmed the yard, blasting the flames. I grabbed my sobbing son. Why was a cake worth burning the house down? He wiped his tears and yells, "It's your birthday, Mommy. You've been working so much that you forgot. You worked so hard for me, so I wanted to make you a cake." My heart broke, and a firefighter beside us gently touched my burnt shoulder. "Ma'am, it's your birthday? Let us help you." I was confused, but within the hour, our whole street had gathered, promising to help us rebuild. The same firefighter left to the store, brought out a cake, and everyone sang to me as my son hugged my leg. I'd just gotten home from my 6th 12-hour shift in a row when I saw him every day at lunch. I secretly slipped extra Fruit Loops onto one girl's tray because I knew what she did with them. She'd thread them onto string and make bracelets, then walk around the cafeteria handing them out with a big smile, hoping someone would take one. No one ever did, but she never stopped smiling. Then one afternoon, the principal stormed across the cafeteria, ripped the bracelets off her arm, and threw them on the floor. "Stop bothering my students with your bracelets. This is meaningless junk." He ground them under his heel, and the kids exploded with laughter, scooping up the crushed cereal and throwing it at her. "Weirdo, lonely freak." She sank to the floor, gathering the pieces with shaking hands. My daughter was the only kid in that cafeteria who wasn't laughing. She stood up from her table, and I froze, wondering what she was about to do. She ran up to my counter, her face red. "Mom, why is everyone so mean to her? She didn't do anything." I crouched down to her. "I know, baby, but if I step in, the principal will fire me." And behind her, we heard a loud sob. A whole table of kids started flicking their tray food at her, and she pulled her hood up, dropped her head, and stood there crying as the kids chanted, "Cereal girl, cereal girl." The principal watched from the doorway, laughing. My daughter turned, saw all of it, and her hands curled into fists. "I know what to do." She marched into my kitchen and started ripping cereal boxes off the shelves. The other ladies yelled at her to get out, but she crammed every box into her backpack and ran. "Where are you going?" I called, but she was already gone. And the next day, my daughter marched up to the girl at her lonely table and emptied her backpack, spilling out a mountain of bracelets, every cereal in my kitchen threaded into the brightest bracelets I'd ever seen. "You're not weird. You make the coolest bracelets in school." The girl's eyes filled up. "You don't think they're weird?" My daughter slid one onto the girl's wrist, then held up her own arm with a matching one. "No, the principal's a weirdo, but now we're best friends who match bracelets." The girl threw her arms around my daughter, sobbing, but with the biggest smile on her face. Every day at lunch, I secretly slipped extra Fruit Loops.
Dit voor de schoolbord kan je het zijn.
I woke up on my birthday and walked downstairs to no cake, no banners, and no presents. "Where's my birthday stuff?" I asked excitedly, but Mom just